She was my best friend's older sister, and for years, she treated me like I was invisible, a ghost in her own home. Every time I walked into a room, she'd find a reason to walk out. I'd start a story, and she'd suddenly have an urgent phone call. For years, I told myself it wasn't personal, that she was just busy, private, or maybe just didn't like me. But the cold shoulder was so consistent it felt like a physical wall. But one rainy night, a single confession changed everything. What I thought was hatred was something else entirely. And now, I'm caught between the friendship I can't lose and a love I never saw coming. Before we continue, I want to ask for something special. If you have a kind heart, please help us achieve our dream of reaching 1,000 subscribers. Subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from, so I can see how far this beautiful story is traveling. For the past 7 years, Megan has been my person. We met during our sophomore year of college in Boston. Two nervous poli-sci majors who bonded over a shared terror of public speaking and a mutual love for late-night pizza. Our friendship was effortless, the kind that settles into your bones and becomes a part of your foundation. After graduation, it felt only natural to get an apartment together. But when her older sister, Olivia, offered us the 2 spare rooms in her spacious brownstone in the South End, it seemed like a gift from the universe. The rent was a steal, and the house was beautiful. There was only one problem: Olivia. It wasn't that she was unkind. Olivia, at 29, was the epitome of quiet elegance and success. She was a senior architect at a prestigious firm, a woman who carried herself with a serene confidence that I, at 25, could only dream of. She was stunning, with dark, intelligent eyes, and a way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. But that intense focus was never, ever directed at me. With me, she was a phantom. I remember the first time I felt it so acutely. It was a Saturday, about a year after we moved in, back in 2024. I was in the kitchen, excitedly telling Megan about a job promotion I was up for. I was animated, waving my hands, my voice probably a little too loud. Olivia walked in to get a glass of water, her presence instantly sucking the warmth out of the room. I faltered, my smile tightening. "Hey, Olivia," I said, trying to include her. She gave a curt nod, her eyes flicking to me for a fraction of a second before looking away. "Jessica," she murmured, her voice flat. She filled her glass, and just as I was about to continue my story, she said, "Oh, I just remembered. I have to call a client back. It's urgent." She disappeared upstairs before the faucet had even stopped dripping. Megan didn't seem to notice, urging me to go on, but the joy had been punctured. This became the pattern. If I was watching a movie in the living room, Olivia would opt to read in her bedroom. If I joined a conversation she was having with Megan, she'd make an excuse to leave within minutes. She never forgot my birthday, always leaving a thoughtfully chosen, expensive gift on the kitchen counter with a simple card signed O, but she was never there for the cake. She avoided me with a surgical precision that was both baffling and deeply hurtful. I tried not to take it personally. I told myself she was an introvert, that her job was demanding, that she just preferred a quiet house. Megan, when I'd cautiously broached the subject once, just shrugged. "That's just Liv," she'd said. "She's always been in her own world. Don't worry about it." But I did worry. I admired her from a distance, this brilliant, composed woman who seemed to have her entire life figured out. I wanted her to like me. More than that, I wanted to understand the invisible barrier she'd erected between us. I'd lie in bed some nights, the faint sounds of her classical music drifting from her room, and wonder what I'd done wrong. The house was big, but her avoidance made it feel small, shrinking the space until the tension was a palpable, living thing in the hallways. The closer I got to Megan, the more Olivia's distance felt like a silent, screaming rejection. And tonight, Megan was hosting a small get-together, a pre-Halloween party in early October 2026. I plastered on a smile, straightened my dress, and prepared myself for another evening of being haunted by the ghost of my best friend's sister. The party was exactly what I expected. A cozy gathering of about 15 people, the living room buzzing with conversation and the scent of mulled wine. Megan was a perfect hostess, flitting between guests, her laughter a bright, constant melody. And Olivia was a perfect shadow. She'd been there when I arrived, offering a tight-lipped smile before immediately getting drawn into a deep conversation about urban planning with a friend from work. For the rest of the night, she was a satellite in a distant orbit, always on the opposite side of the room, her back often turned to wherever I was. I tried to catch her eye once to offer a friendly wave, but she was engrossed in a story, her face animated in a way I rarely saw. It was a familiar sting. Around 11, the party started to thin out. Megan, flushed with wine and happiness, was leaving with a guy she'd been seeing. "You good to get home, Jess?" she asked, pulling on her coat. "My rideshare will be here in 10, I assured her, giving her a hug. "Have fun." The last of the guests trickled out, leaving a mess of empty glasses and a quiet that felt louder than the earlier chatter. I was alone in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when the notification popped up. "Your driver has canceled." I sighed. At the same moment, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. The rain, which had been a soft drizzle, was now a torrential downpour, hammering against the old windows of the brownstone. "Looks like you're stuck." The voice came from the doorway. It was Olivia. She was holding 2 wine glasses, her expression unreadable. "The storm's getting bad. No one's getting a car right now." An awkward silence stretched between us. My heart was pounding. This was the longest we'd been alone together in years. "Yeah, looks like it," I finally managed to say. She walked over to the armchair across from me and sat down, placing the glasses on the coffee table. She pushed one toward me. "Here," she said. "Might as well have another while you wait." I took the glass, my fingers brushing hers for a fleeting second. It felt like a jolt of electricity. We sat in silence, the only sounds the drumming of the rain and the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I felt like I had to say something, anything, to break the suffocating tension. "So, busy week at work?" I cringed internally at how lame I sounded. She took a slow sip of her wine. "Always," she replied, not elaborating. The silence returned, heavier this time. I decided to just be direct. I couldn't take it anymore. "Olivia," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "Can I ask you something? Do you not like me?" Her head snapped up, her dark eyes wide with something I couldn't decipher. Surprise? Fear? "Why would you say that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because you avoid me," I said, the words tumbling out now. "You have for years. You leave the room when I enter, you never talk to me. If I did something to offend you, I wish you would just tell me." She stared at me, her knuckles white as she gripped her wine glass. The rain lashed against the window pane. She looked down at her lap, then back at me, and her carefully constructed composure finally shattered. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. "God, Jessica," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "You think I don't like you?" She let out a humorless laugh. "It's the exact opposite. That's the problem." I just stared, completely stunned. "What?" "I don't avoid you because I dislike you," she said, her gaze intense and unwavering. I avoid you because for the last 5 years, I've been trying to convince myself that I'm not completely in love with you." The words hung in the air between us, more powerful than the thunder rolling outside. In love with you. My mind went blank. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis, and every memory I had of Olivia was being violently reshuffled and dealt back to me in a new, incomprehensible order. The quick exits, the averted eyes, the clipped one-word answers. I had interpreted them as signs of disdain, a clear message that I wasn't welcome in her orbit. Now, she was telling me they were the exact opposite. It wasn't a wall to keep me out. It was a cage to keep her feelings in. I started, but no words came. My throat was dry. I could only stare at her, at the raw vulnerability on her face, a look I had never seen before. The mask of the cool, composed architect was gone, replaced by a woman who looked terrified and relieved all at once. "When you and Megan became friends," she continued, her voice gaining a bit of strength, "I thought it was great. Megan was so happy. And then you started coming around more, and you were just this force of nature. You were bright and funny, and you filled this house with so much life." She looked away, as if the memory was too much. "I found myself watching you, listening to your stories, and I started feeling things I had no business feeling. You were my little sister's best friend. It was impossible. It is impossible." Her pain was a tangible thing in the room. I could feel the years of her silent struggle, the constant vigilance it must have taken to keep her distance. And as I listened, a strange, dormant feeling inside me began to stir. I thought back to all the times I had found myself trying to impress her, the way my heart would leap with a pathetic flicker of hope when she'd give me a rare, fleeting smile. I had told myself it was a desire for approval, a wish for my best friend's sister to like me. But was it? As I looked at her now, with the truth laid bare between us, I had to admit it was something more. I had been drawn to her quiet strength and her hidden depths, from the very beginning. I had just buried the feeling under layers of perceived rejection and the unspoken rule that she was off limits. "I didn't know," I whispered, the words feeling inadequate. "Olivia, I never would have guessed." "That was the point," she said with a sad smile. "I was so scared of what it would do to you and Megan. Her friendship with you is the most important thing in her life. I couldn't be the one to mess that up. So, I built a wall. I thought if I kept you at arm's length, the feelings would just fade. But they never did." The storm outside began to subside, the rain softening to a gentle patter. The world felt quiet, holding its breath. I reached across the table and, for the first time, took her hand. Her skin was cold, but her grip was strong. "Maybe you weren't the only one building a wall," I admitted, my voice soft. A flicker of hope ignited in her eyes. We didn't say anything else for a long time. We just sat there, holding hands in the aftermath of the storm, the confession hanging between us, no longer a source of tension, but a fragile, terrifying, beautiful bridge. The rain had stopped, but I knew the real storm was just beginning. What did this mean for us? What did this mean for Megan? The path forward was shrouded in fog, but for the first time, Olivia and I were looking at it together. The morning after the confession felt like waking up in a different reality. The house was the same. The autumn light streamed through the windows in the same way, but everything was altered. The air itself seemed to vibrate with our shared secret. Olivia and I didn't speak of it that morning. A silent, mutual agreement seemed to pass between us. We needed time to let the revelation settle. But the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. When I came downstairs for coffee, she was already there, reading the paper. Instead of her usual curt nod, she looked up, and her eyes met mine. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips, and my stomach did a nervous flip. It was a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. The next few weeks were a masterclass in covert communication. Our lives were filled with stolen glances across the dinner table, moments where our hands would brush as we reached for the same thing in the fridge, and a silent language that only we understood. The tension of avoidance had been replaced by the electric hum of unspoken attraction. I found myself learning a new version of Olivia. The quiet woman I'd known was still there, but now I saw the humor that sparkled in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. The way she'd bite her lip when she was concentrating on a design. The genuine warmth that she had always reserved for Megan. Living with Megan, however, became a minefield of guilt. She was my best friend, the person I told everything to, and now I was holding this colossal secret from her. Every time she'd talk about Olivia, I'd feel a knot tighten in my stomach. "Liv is in such a good mood lately, have you noticed?" she said one evening as we were making dinner. "She's been less broody. Maybe that big project at work is finally winding down." I just hummed in agreement, focusing intently on chopping vegetables, my cheeks burning. I felt like a traitor. The most difficult moments were when the three of us were together. One Friday night, we decided to have a movie night, just us. We piled onto the huge sofa, Megan in the middle, a big bowl of popcorn in her lap. Throughout the movie, I was so aware of Olivia next to me. Our shoulders were pressed together, and I could feel the warmth of her through her sweater. At one point, she subtly shifted, and her pinky finger hooked around mine in the space between the cushions. My breath hitched. It was such a small, secret act of intimacy, but it felt more significant than a public declaration. I spent the rest of the movie in a state of heightened awareness, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Megan, completely oblivious, was laughing at the screen. Halfway through, she turned to us. "Isn't this nice?" she said, her expression open and happy. "My two favorite people. I'm so glad you two are finally getting along better. For a while there, I thought you hated each other." Olivia and I exchanged a quick, panicked look over Megan's head. "We never hated each other," Olivia said smoothly, her voice calm, even as her finger tightened around mine. "We were just figuring things out." Megan accepted the answer easily, turning back to the movie. But her innocent words hung in the air. The secret was growing, becoming heavier with each passing day. It was a beautiful, fragile bubble, and we both knew it was only a matter of time before it burst. The bubble burst on a Tuesday. It wasn't a dramatic explosion, but a quiet, heart-stopping pop. I had come home early from work, feeling drained. I walked into the kitchen and found Olivia there, sketching in her notebook at the island. Her face lit up when she saw me, a genuine, unguarded smile that still made my heart skip a beat. Acting on an impulse that had been building for weeks, I walked over, leaned down, and gave her a soft, lingering kiss. It was our first. It was gentle and hesitant, but it was also full of all the words we hadn't said. When I pulled back, she was breathless. "Jessica," she whispered. But before either of us could say more, we heard a key in the front door. "I'm home," Megan's voice called out. We sprang apart as if electrocuted. By the time Megan walked into the kitchen, I was pretending to inspect the contents of the fridge, and Olivia was furiously scribbling in her notebook, her face a mask of intense concentration. "Hey, you're both home early," Megan said, dropping her bags. "What's for dinner?" She was smiling, completely unaware that she had just walked into the epicenter of a life-altering moment. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure she could hear it. Olivia and I exchanged a single, terrified glance. We had almost been caught. The risk was no longer a vague future possibility. It was real and immediate. That night, after Megan had gone to bed, Olivia knocked on my door. "We need to talk," she said, her face pale and serious. We sat on my bed, the space between us charged with anxiety. "We can't do this anymore, Jess," she said, her voice strained. "Living a lie, hiding in our own home, it's not fair to Megan, and it's not fair to us." She was right. The stolen moments and secret glances were thrilling, but they were also eating away at me, eroding the honesty that was the bedrock of my friendship with Megan. This couldn't be our story, a relationship built in the shadows, shrouded in guilt. "I know," I said, my voice heavy. "What do we do?" There were only two paths forward. We could end this, right here, before it went any further. We could try to bury our feelings and go back to the way things were, though we both knew that was impossible. Or we could choose the other path, the terrifying, uncertain one. We could choose honesty. "We have to tell her," I said, the words tasting like fear and resolve. Olivia looked at me, her dark eyes searching mine. I saw my own fear reflected there, but I also saw a deep, unwavering love. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Together." We decided to do it that weekend. The weight of the decision was immense, but it was also liberating. We were done hiding. Whatever happened next, we would face it together. On Saturday afternoon, my stomach in knots, I found Megan reading in the living room. Olivia came and stood beside me, a silent pillar of support. I saw her reach out and take my hand, her fingers lacing through mine. It wasn't a secret touch in the dark. It was a clear, open gesture. Megan looked up from her book, her eyes first landing on our joined hands, then moving to my face, then to her sister's. A confused frown creased her forehead. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice cautious. I took a deep breath, squeezed Olivia's hand, and prepared to speak the hardest words of my life. The story of us was about to truly begin. Thank you so much for listening to this story until the end. Sometimes the greatest risks lead to the most beautiful truths. Be brave enough to speak your heart, even when it's terrifying. If this story touched you, please consider subscribing to the channel to help us grow. May you all be blessed.